What's going on, guys? Your boy Fluff here. Today we're going to get into one of the fastest T13 setups for the Barbarian next season. Possibly one of the fastest T13 setups in the game, period. Of course, we're talking about the Charge Barb. Now, the Charge Barb isn't some new thing to Diablo, and a lot of you guys will recognize this build, but a lot of things have changed in 2.6.1 to make this build a lot stronger, a lot more powerful for T13, a lot more powerful for pushing. But in this video, we're just going to talk about what's best for T13. It's amazing. It's really strong. You guys are going to love it. Let's get into it. Now, again, a Furious Charge is no new thing, guys. There's just been a lot of changes that's happened on 2.6.1. And when I was building the Season 12 starter guide for the Barb, which is coming your way, guys, I didn't really feel like there was a great video guide for the Charge Barb. A lot of the guides we saw out there were mostly for the push build that you want to do with Charge Barb. In this video, we're just talking about the T13 setup. And what we wanted to share with you guys, what we've been running on PTR to get crazy fast clear times on the Barb with virtually no Paragon, no augments, just insanely OP. So this build revolves around Furious Charge. Crazy, right? Charge Barb revolves around Furious Charge. What? Which says rush forward, knocking back and dealing 600% weapon damage to enemies along your path. So all we're concerned with is juicing up Furious Charge. How do we do that? One way, we're using the Razer set. The 4-piece bonus says Furious Charge gains the effect of every rune and deals 1000% increased damage. So boom, 1000%. We're also using Immortal Kings, which says while both Wrath of the Berserker and Call of the Ancients are active, you deal 1500% increased damage. In the cube, we're using Standoff, which says Furious Charge deals increased damage equal to 500% of your bonus movement speed. And we'll get into all the ways we're juicing up our movement speed in a second. We're also using Vile Ward, which says Furious Charge deals 35% increased damage for every enemy hit while charging. You guys can imagine if you get a super juice dense rift, this thing is OP. We're also, of course, using Wrath of the Berserker with Insanity. You get 50% increased damage while it's active, along with some other great effects. We're using Battle Rage Bloodshed, which gives us a flat 10% damage, plus a nice juicy effect that says deal damage equal to 20% of your recent critical hits to enemies within 20 yards every 1 second. We're also using Rampage, which increases their damage. We're using Ruthless, which basically gives us, 40% damage a third of the time. And of course, Berserker Rage, because we are going to be staying at full fury basically the whole time. And in this setup, we've chosen to run a Hellfire Amulet with Brawler, and Brawler will give us a 20% increased damage as long as there's 3 enemies within 12 yards, which is going to happen a lot of the time. Now, those are the straight damage modifiers. Let's talk more about Standoff. Standoff basically gives you more Furious Charge damage for the more movement speed you have. So we're using quite a few things here to juice up our movement speed. One, Wrath of the Berserker obviously increases our movement speed by 20%. Fantastic. We're using Sprint with Marathon to increase our movement speed by 40%. We're using Pound of Flesh, which says when you are healed by a health globe, you gain 2% life regeneration per second and 4% increased movement speed for 15 seconds. This stacks up to 5 times, so that's 20% movement speed. We're also using Wreath of Lightning, which gives us 25% movement speed while the effect procs. We're using Boon of the Hoarder, which also gives us 30% movement speed for 2 seconds after picking up gold. And this is the Avarice band, so our pickup radius gets increased every time we pick up gold. You guys can see where I'm going with this. Crazy. Basically, we're getting crazy damage, insane amount of movement speed, so much movement speed even that I have a hard time picking stuff up on the ground because I'm just so fast. All right, so now we know how we're juicing up Furious Charge. Let's talk about some of the nuances and the skills. Now, if you look at IK, 2P says Call of Ancients lasts until they die, which is really nice because we're using Together as One, which says 50% of all the damage you take is divided amongst your Ancients. This is a really nice damage mitigation effect, and they're going to be up basically 100% of the time. And you want to keep them up 100% of the time, because while both Wrath of the Berserker and Call of the Ancients are active, you get that 1500% damage multiplier. So really important to keep these guys up. They'll rarely die in T13, so just make sure you watch that number 3 up here in the top left. If that ever drops to 2 or 1, make sure you get those guys back out. And if you look at the 4-piece IK, it says reduce the cooldown of Wrath of the Berserker, Call of the Ancients by 3 seconds for every 10 fury you spend with an attack. Now notice the verbiage here. It says 10 fury you spend with an attack. It doesn't say you have to hit anything. So the push variation, we'll use Focus and Restraint, which says when you hit with a resource spending attack, you deal 50% increased damage for 5 seconds. Now, we actually don't care about hitting anything at all. We're just using our spender here to expend all of our fury, get the cooldown on Wrath of the Berserker down, get the cooldown on Call of the Ancients down, but mostly Wrath of the Berserker because, again, Your Call of the Ancients rarely ever die, so you don't really need to bring their cooldown down. It's just about Wrath of the Berserker. So that's the IK set. We're also wearing the Raid Core set, which we talked about already. But the 2-piece says Furious Charge refunds a charge if hits only one enemy. That's really nice against, you know, things like the RG. Very rarely on T13 will you be facing just one mob, but this is a really nice effect for that. The other really important thing to notice about this set is kind of the cooldown reduction breakpoints here. 37% is exactly the cooldown that you need to have Furious Charge reset when you hit 3 or more enemies, and that's really important to note. So just as long as you're hitting 3 or more enemies or just one enemy, you can just spam the crap out of Furious Charge. But if there's 2 mobs on the screen, you're gonna lose charges of Furious Charge, or if you just don't hit anything at all with your charge. Now, most of the time on T13, you're just spamming charge and jumping into a bunch of elites or trash, and you don't have to really worry about this, but you will notice if you don't have that 37% breakpoint that you might lose those charges more on average than you would if you didn't have that 37% breakpoint. Now, you could almost reach the 2 mob breakpoint for cooldown reduction, which is around just above 54-55% CDR. If you have CDR absolutely everywhere, even the necklace, but you don't quite reach it. So you can't really get the 2 mob reset bonus of Furious Charge. We've talked about the sets, we talked about how we're juicing up Furious Charge, we talked about some of the nuances with the build. The really only thing left here is to talk about, you know, we're using Ancient Spear with Boulder Toss, which says throw a giant boulder, expends all fury, deal 20% of that damage for every point, blah, 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 blah. We don't really care about how much damage it's dealing. It's doing like basically no damage. We just care about the fact that it's expending all of our fury, which will proc the 4-piece bonus of Immortal Kings to bring down your cooldown on Wrath of the Berserker. In this setup, we're also earning the Nemesis Bracers. We're not using Ingyam, and that's one of the reasons this build is so powerful, because in no way does it rely on Ingyam. It doesn't even use Bane the Powerful, so we don't have to worry about like maybe killing a little Scraggler in an elite pack, and that can really speed up your Rift clear times. But Nemesis can be pretty rare to get. So another really good option is Warzetchian Arm Guards, which says every time you destroy a wreckable object, you'll gain a short burst of movement speed. And this pairs pretty darn well with Wreath of Lightning. Wreath of Lightning will, you know, kill barrels as you're charging throughout the rift, or even you'll run into barrels or whatever as you're charging throughout the rift. But Warzetchians can be really nice too. It will juice up your damage quite a bit. Nemesis is going to be better overall because, you know, we're really concerned with Death's Breath in T13. So getting as many elites throughout the rift as you possibly can is the best. And then lastly in the cube, you know, we are using Ring of Royal Grandeur as our jewelry setup. That allows us to wear 4-piece Raid Core and 6-piece Immortal Kings. For the other pieces of jewelry, you run Band of Avarice, which says each time you pick up gold, increase your gold and health pickup radius by 1 yard for 10 seconds, stacking up to 30 times. So when this thing's at full power, you had 30 yard pickup radius plus whatever you have on your gear, which can make, you know, after you kill a pack, you don't have to worry about, you know, running around picking up globes. You're going to pick up a crazy ton amount of gold here, which can be nice for empowering your greater rifts. Now again, you might be thinking, Avarice Band and Boon the Hoarder, where's your gold wrap? Guys, one, we don't need it. We're crazy tough as it is. Now you can't stand in the middle of multiple molten explosions, but you're super tanky, and you just can't, there's no room in this build to wear the gold wrap, and you don't want to cube it because then you'd have to drop Vile Wards, and you don't want to do that. The other ring slot, we're wearing Band of Might. No brainer here, guys. This thing is OP in 2.6.1. This will increase your damage mitigation after casting Furious Charge by up to 80% for 8 seconds, which is just insane. So obviously it's going to have 100% uptime. We're Furious Charging non-stop. Now I recommend wearing the Band of Might, wearing the Avarice Band, and cubing the Ring of Royal Grandeur, because Ring of Royal Grandeur doesn't roll that great. And with Avarice Band and Band of Might, you have a chance to get a Dream Roll. And a Dream Roll here is a crit damage, crit chance, cooldown reduction, socket. So while we're on that subject, let's go ahead and talk about stat priority real quick. Again, you only need 37% cooldown reduction, but the more cooldown reduction you get in this build, the faster your Furious Charge will come back after maybe you've messed up and charged no targets or charged 2 targets. So the more cooldown, the better. And you don't really need other stats that will maybe give you more damage, because again, we have no augments. We have all of our strength paragon removed, and we're just absolutely face roll T13. So I would encourage you to get as much cooldown as you possibly can. Go for the gloves. Strength, crit chance, crit damage, cooldown reduction are going to be OP. Shoulders, strength, vite, all res, and cooldown reduction. If you can get furious charge damage here on the shoulders, that would be good as well. But it's not a big deal. This is T13. Helmet, strength, vite, crit chance. And on any one of these pieces, if you can get pickup radius on the secondary, that's great for T13. Chest, strength, vite, furious charge damage. Belt, strength, vite, life, all res. You can also get life per fury spent here. You probably won't need the healing in this build, but if you find that you do, you can go ahead and pick it up on the belt. Pants, strength, vite, all res. On the boots, strength, vite, all res, and armor would probably be the best rolls. On the weapon, you know, damage roll, percent damage. I would prefer cooldown reduction over vitality here. The bracers, you're going to want physical, because you're doing physical damage here. Strength, vite, crit chance. On the rings, preferably you would want the dream roll, and that's why I said, again, cube the Ring of Royal Grandeur and wear the Avarice and Band of Might, because Avarice and Band of Might can roll dream rolls, which would be crit chance, crit damage, cooldown reduction, and a socket. And then for the amulets, you know, we've gone with the Hellfire amulet here with Brawler, but you can basically wear any necklace. It's not that big of a deal. Crit damage, crit chance, physical will be really good. Or if you want to try to gear for that maximum cooldown reduction, you can get cooldown reduction here as well. And that's basically going to do it for the guide. It's a really, really strong build for T13. Pretty darn easy to put together early on in the season. And we'll go into that in the upcoming Season 12 starter guide for the Barbarian. Again, we just put this video together real quick because I didn't really feel like there were a lot of strong T13 Furious Charge videos out there. And that's what we're trying to do for you guys. As always, guys, big shout out to all my supporters on Twitch, YouTube. We love you guys. You guys make this shizzle happen. Keeps our juice flowing, keeps the dream alive. So again, thank you guys. As always, like, subscribe, come over to Twitch, ask your questions. We love you guys. Peace out.
With